Welcome, welcome. I'd like to welcome you to our pattern breaking room for today. And today we're looking at how successful empaths prevent burnout without disappointing the people who rely on them. In a way, when you look at this title, it almost feels like it's a contradiction. Why? Because quite often, if you're an empath and have people who rely on you, it almost feels almost impossible to prevent burnout. Just noticing another family member has joined today. What's happening today? Tara, you're gonna meet my whole family perhaps will join today. That's interesting. Okay, cool. Right, so we have empaths would usually struggle to prevent burnout because they are focusing a lot of their energy on helping the people around them. But today we're going to be looking at specific techniques that will help you be able to figure out specifically when you are actually on the verge of burnout. I know that may feel a little bit odd because people will think, oh, if you're tired, you should just know you're tired. But there's certain things that happens when, if I can use the word, if you become a professional empath, in other words, it's become so strongly part and parcel of who you are that there's certain things about tiredness that's not just the same as with everybody else. And that's one of the things that we'll be looking at today. So today, this is for you if you found yourself in a situation where you were coping well, and all of a sudden start feeling exhausted, and this becomes a pattern that is very repeatable. This is for you if you find yourself, maybe you did one small thing and find I just did that small thing. Why am I so exhausted? And this is also a pattern that's repeatable. And you've come to a point where you are wanting to know how you can protect your health while still being genuinely helpful to the people around you. So what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn how to catch the warning signs before you crash. So you don't use months of your life just on recovery. Now, if you can relate to what I'm saying, there's a chance that you've perhaps spent quite a lot of time just recovering because you didn't realize you were about to crash, and then the crash happened, and then you're spending the weeks trying to sort of get back up to your normal self. And perhaps you just struggle with this pattern happening a lot. I had a client who, she came to me particularly because almost unfailingly, roughly every 3 to 4 months, she will have a major crash to the point where her body will just not be able to do anything and she just have to sleep for days. And she felt like there was some biological thing wrong with her and had been going to doctors, from doctors to doctors, to try and figure out what's going on, why am I having these problems? There must be something really going on that is causing me to fall ill like this. And this time they'll do the test, they do all the different tests, and everything will come back that she's fine. And it was sort of surprising her, what's going on here? So eventually she came to therapy, and we worked out that, yes, she was an empath. We worked out that growing up as a child, she had grown to think of herself last as she's trying to meet the needs of her family, her sister and her mom. Her mom was a bit of a tough one because she was quite narcissistic and quite demanding. And mom was then never really around, and the client had to actually be the mother for her sister. So she had grown up with this perspective of often putting herself last. So when we started working, we started noticing the different patterns that she was following. And one of the key things was she didn't realize, she struggled to realize when her body was saying it was tired. She just didn't know how to tell. Now, that may seem like an obvious thing to everybody else. When your body's tired, you just know how it is when it's tired. But the thing was that she had gotten so used to pushing herself to the point where the only time she realizes she's tired is when she's completely crashed. So some of you listening to me today may feel, okay, that feels familiar. That feels familiar. And so what we're going to be looking at today is strategies to help you figure out how to catch the moment before things go pear-shaped. And the strategic things you can put in place to stop things going pear-shaped this way. So I hope that's good. So just a little bit about me, and for those who are going to be listening to this afterwards as well. My name is Adewale Ademuwa. I'm the founder of Stress Therapist The Nest, and I'm a licensed consultant psychotherapist with 30 years of treating people struggling with high-functioning depression, trauma, personality difficulties, and all forms of anxieties. So over that time, I've helped over 1,600 people break out of just surviving through life, using my 4 forces framework. So they could stop just sacrificing themselves just to keep functioning. Now, for those of you who've been attending, we do these pattern rooms. I'm going to be doing these pattern room programs. And the goal of the pattern room program is to help people learn to understand the patterns that they may be following. Quite often what happens is that over years, you would have certain patterns, you don't even realize you are following those patterns, but these patterns are contributing to emotional difficulties. So this is what we are doing with the pattern rooms. And I have a strong passion. One of my current passion is to create a world where everyone has personalized emotional care in their pockets. And I'm going to be using my knowledge in psychotherapy, my knowledge in neuroscience and AI, mixing together to kind of create tools to help people learn how to cope and function better. So that's me in a nutshell. So going back to our webinar, the reality is, if you were to be asked about your limits, cognitively, you know your limits. It's not like there's a lacking of awareness there. Because you could describe the moments where things start to go pear-shaped. So what am I talking about when I say you might not really understand when your body is tired? Because the reality is not so much about the knowledge, or should I say, there are 2 types of knowledge. There's a knowledge that you may know logically, know something logically, but there's a different knowledge about what you feel. And sometimes it's the feel part of it that may not be so clear. So here's a graph that kind of shows the awareness gap. So let's say you're somebody at work, you've been given a task on top of the millions of tasks you already have at work, and you're being asked to take on something else. Naturally, because as an empath, you struggle to say no, you go to the yes. But then there's something happening. There's a delayed awareness of your body itself. And that delayed awareness is doing something which I would sort of elaborate here. And this is very, very important to be able to understand what's going here physically. Because this is not just a boundary problem. Yes, we are dealing with boundaries, but it's beyond just a boundaries problem. And one of the reasons why it's beyond a boundary problem is that if you cannot feel, it's a bit like this. I don't know if anybody um, here knows what leprosy is. So leprosy is a disease that we don't necessarily see in our modern times now. But in the biblical times, leprosy would be something that people would be extremely scared of because there was no cure. And if you had leprosy, it just eats your skin away. But one of the things that happens with leprosy is if you put your, if you had leprosy, let's say you had your hand was being affected with leprosy, and you put it in fire, you may not even realize your hand is in fire because you can't feel anything. So we could almost see that the inability to feel that I'm reaching my limit is almost feels like that kind of leprosy thing. Except that in this case, there's actually a biological thing happening inside of your body if you've gotten to this stage. So we call this introception. And introception is that ability for you to be able to read your internal bodily signals. So if you're feeling hungry, there's a particular sensation we have when we're feeling hungry. For people who they've gotten so used to starving themselves, sometimes they may not even realize that feeling is here because they stop feeling it as well. So in the same way, tiredness, depletion, I've had enough. I don't have as much energy. There's also that signal in your body that's telling you that you are tired and you don't have energy. Now, if you are not feeling that signal, or it's not as clear as it's supposed to be, just naturally, you won't know, just like that leprosy person who putting their hand in the fire, you won't necessarily know at what stage your body is gotten into that mode where you actually need to take a break. Can I just check if everything I've explained up to this stage makes sense? I just need some thumbs up to confirm that it makes sense. Thumbs up, Melissa. Thank you. Anybody else here? Okay, just give me some thumbs up just to confirm it makes sense. Just one more person. I don't know, Mona, you just joined. Okay, I'll just take hope. All right, sit. Thank you, Genevieve. It makes sense. Cool. So we're saying the signal has been turned off because of this interoception thing. So essentially, what turns this interoception thing off? If you think about what happens with someone who has become an empath for different reasons, so like my client, we spent all her childhood life looking after her sister, making sure everybody else is happy. One of the things is you start learning to read other people's moods. If you've noticed as an empath, there's always a tendency to just feel the feelings of everybody around you because the experiences have trained you to focus your attention outside yourself. So you're reading other people's moods, you're anticipating other people's needs, you're doing things to keep the peace, you're managing other people's feelings. Whilst you're doing all of that, you are becoming an expert at being able to see everything external to you. But what's that doing to what's happening inside you? This is what is actually causing the interoception thing that I just described. So it's almost like the more energy you're placing on being able to read everybody outside you, the more energy you're pushing down, you're placing on pushing down your own needs, you're quietly turning down your body's signaling system. So it's like you're muting the things that's suggesting to you that your body requires rest. And once this starts to get muted, it's almost like each time it gets muted, it needs to be louder before you can feel it. And it gets muted even more. It needs to be louder. Eventually, the loudest signals that will be able to make you know you're tired are the signals that mean you can't get out of bed. So you can see how the system starts to get switched off. Get switched off because it's being placed in a self-reinforcing loop. And that's how you can see in this particular slide, the fine, and then collapse. There's no warning signs. But it's not that there's no warning signs. The warning signs are there. It's just that you are no longer sensitive to it. And this is why people who have a high capacity, high functioning people particularly, this can be one of the reasons why they would struggle with this kind of thing. Because all the signals are now being interpreted as normal. The overwhelm is being interpreted as normal until the body eventually has to stop. Okay, so I know I've gone over this because I needed to really make people see the picture of how this, almost like a blindness to your own internal signals, occurs. But the good news, though, is that you are not broken. This is not suggesting that you are broken. This system is still there. The system that helps you tell when you are getting tired is still there. It's just now about learning to train it back up, learning to train it back into awareness. Now, before I carry on with this, I just want to check with everybody if people have sort of maybe heard some elements of the kind of things I've been talking about from the beginning of the session up till now. Have you heard this before? Have you tried to work on this before? Have you tried different strategies to help you be able to figure out and be able to hear your body's signals better before? You can just type your answers or use the mic if you are comfortable. Just looking through the chats to see. Yes, you have in various types of therapy. Cool. Have you been able to find strategies that has helped you be able to? Oh, you've tried in hypnotherapy as well, Melissa. Have you been able to try different strategies that have actually helped you be able to tell and pinpoint when the tiredness comes in place so that you can retrain the body? Just checking to see if anybody has actually successfully managed to do that. So feeling emotionally exhausted when I want to do something, I feel guilty for saying no. However, I want peace and joy to feel again before I get burnt. So, however, I want peace and joy to feel again before I got burnt out and depressed. So when the time comes again, I can do a better job of yeah. So if the situation was to come again where the tiredness is about to hit, you want to be able to catch it before it hits so you can do a better job of that. Okay. Yes, but I keep slipping back to the old ways at times, especially with family. Yeah. I think it can be very hard with family, definitely. Especially if you want to be the kind, loving person in your family to you don't want to be mean and wicked to people. And especially if family are not good at noticing that they should actually step back and say the no for you. Definitely. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So So the strategy we're going to be looking at today, I call this the see it and the see it shifted strategy. Now, see it, it may seem obvious, but what I was saying, we're just trying to get people to see something. But seeing it itself, it can be very, very difficult. But to sort of understand the see it, we'll just go through a number of things. Then I'll share a number of techniques that can help you begin to see it in a way that perhaps maybe you haven't seen it before. You may have come across what we call a stress cup. So a stress cup is just an image that kind of shows the amount of stress a person has just normally, even if they are not an empath. So, in other words, just imagine that this cup that you're seeing here is your whole body, and the amount that is in view there is the baseline of stress that has already been taken up by either your personal history, by your existing responsibilities, by your emotional experiences, or all the different support systems that you are putting in place for other people. So that is already taking all up. So in other words, that's your baseline. So, but then when you have to go to work, you have to deal with a manager, maybe you have to deal with bills, you have to deal with, there's all these different things just easily just make your stress levels climb up to the top. And how do we notice it? How do we see it? And how do we begin to push back? So you can think of this like there is your interoception system. You can think of it also almost like a muscle memory. So a muscle that if it gets used can get stronger. If it's not used, can get weaker. So essentially what we've been saying all along is all your experiences has been teaching you to not use that muscle at all. And all we just now have to do is start to use that muscle. And how do you do that tangibly? A number of things. So my client puts it this way. She said like, okay, when we were working, it's almost like she has a bit of a lever. So in her mind, she can tell when she is extremely exhausted and stressed. And she can tell when she is totally fine and happy, everything is fine and no stress, everything is going smoothly. What she can't tell is the in-betweens. The in-betweens become like the gray area. And it's the in-betweens that we actually need to become good at being able to tell in order to be able to spot this and prevent the breakdown. So I'll use another example. So another of my clients. So this client, he has a form of bipolar, but this form of bipolar was more like he would also be fine until something makes him extremely excitable. And then he notices he gets very excited, and before long, the bipolar hits. But he himself was not able to tell the middle as well. Now, for these two clients, the way we sort of worked at the middle was, okay, let's do different activities, specific activities that create a type of either relaxed feeling, either soothing feeling, either meditative feeling. And then we created these different activities. And we're doing these different activities. I was getting the clients to take note of how they were feeling in those moments. So for the first client I spoke about, so we sort of created like maybe four different layers. So the hardest layers where the mid layers, the very middle layers, the layers slightly above that and slightly below that were a little bit easier to achieve, to sort of get to understand. Okay. Now, why am I describing it like this? Because if you don't actually see it like, okay, there are just layers of difficulty, just layers of difficulties that I have to just learn to understand how to feel, you won't even know that there's a practical system in play here that you can start using to tweak your system's ability to respond. Because once you start to figure out how to notice each layer, it eventually becomes like a muscle memory for you, to the point that you can be able to tell when you're at each stage. And I'm saying this from experience with, like, so for that client, after we've done this practice for a number of weeks, she was eventually be able to tell, okay, I'm in this stage now. This is when I need rest. So I can now I can tell people, okay, I have to take a break and I have to rest. And then she wasn't feeling so guilty. But because after weeks of doing this, it's now become second nature for her to be able to figure it out. So what kind of things can you do to train yourself to be able to understand and pinpoint the layers? Now, there is a bio as a bio equipment called a stress dot. I don't know if anybody has ever come across this before. A stress dot. If you've come across this before, just kind of give me a thumbs up. Okay, I see no stress. I see no thumbs up. So I'm presuming people haven't come across this before. So I think they sell this in Amazon as well. So the idea with a stress dot is a stress dot is just is a tiny dot that has been built to change color based on your stress levels. So in other words, if you put your finger on it, it will turn red. The stress more stress you become, and go completely black if you are extremely stressed. But it will turn green and then go completely blue if you're calm. So one thing we could do is use a stress dot to help you start to know how each of the levels of feeling exhausted, feeling tired is actually um, feeling. So in other words, if you were maybe given a task that was getting you frustrated, you use the stress dot and it tells you, okay, under this kind of scenario, this is how this is affecting me. Or if you were at a stage where you're thinking, okay, I can go more, I can push myself more, you use the stress dot to see, okay, maybe this is actually highlighting, it's black, actually, maybe this is when I should kind of take a break. So this is one way where we can start to figure out what layer what layer we are at and how each of these layers affect us. And also we can highlight what kinds of experiences, what kind of activities tends to create different types of exhaustion in the body. Now the stress dots could be very cheap, so you could get it for maybe like 10 or 20 dots for £5 to £10, I think. Let me see if I can get an image of this now. I should have actually created an image of this before. Actually, if you type in Google stress bio dots, you should maybe see some examples of this. I'll stop that sharing and I'll share the Yes. Can you all see this? Thumbs up just to let me know that you can see this and then go back to how we're
Yes.
posting. Thank you. Cool. Right. So that's one way of being able to tell. Excuse me. Now my share screen is refusing to come back up. So that's one way of being able to tell when we are being at different levels. Another way of being able to tell, and this can be a very powerful way. Sometimes it may feel a little bit strange, but the more you're able to kind of pinpoint in your body, what does feeling relaxed actually feel like? What does feeling soothes? What does was feeling calm? What does it really feel like inside the body? Now, for someone who maybe doesn't have this as a problem, that may seem like a ridiculous thing. Why would you even want to consider that? But you'd be surprised how many people don't actually have that experience of feeling really genuinely calm, really genuinely relaxed in the body. I'm talking in the bones type of relaxed. You'll be surprised how many people don't really feel that. And if you don't really feel it, if you haven't really experienced it regularly enough, the thing is you won't even know what it feels like. And so it is crucial to start practicing different types of techniques that will bring that soothing feeling, that really relaxed feeling, that in the bone relaxation feeling. Because once you can feel it, you understand that, okay, this is this is how my body feels when it's relaxed, when it's really recovered, when it's settled. And then that becomes a rubric that you help yourself to use yourself to help yourself to sort of judge that I'm not feeling the relaxed state now. Okay. Now, something I must say here. Now, we are not saying that stress is bad. It's important that people understand that that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that stress is bad. What we're saying is that if your lifestyle of your approach to living has made it such that being in a stressed state is your normal, the reality is you just won't know what being in a calm and soothing and warm and relaxed state is. I think I see a, a question. So, like having a sense of control emotionally and physically, it's a nice feeling that you would wish to stay more. And the thing is that, yes, yes, Tara, that's true. The thing is that once you understand what the feeling is, and you understand the kinds of things that can help you get to the feeling, you now can be able to engineer situations to bring you to the feeling a lot more regularly. Now, now, what I'm not saying is that we need to be in a sweet, soothing, relaxed state permanently all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is more that if you're someone who maybe gets to that state once every 3 months, once every 6 months, once maybe every year, we need to start working towards at least being able to get to that state once every week, once, twice every week, because this is the feeling that helps your body know it has reset. Once you get to that stage, if your body resets, in other words, when it resets, it means that you now have more capacity to be able to do more, to be able to take on more. Okay, can I just get a feedback from people as to what they've taken away from what I've just described there? Can just tap a little bit your understanding of what you're taking away from them. Or if you feel comfortable, you can use the microphone. So, okay, not getting anybody typing. So is that suggesting that I didn't take anything away from it? I'm hoping that's not the case. Okay, maybe I should ask the question this way. Do you feel like you have a better sense of how you might be able to get to a state of your body feeling recovered? Just some yeses or nos. So even if you have a no as your response, that'll be great, because that will help me be able to say, maybe have a talk with you to see how I can help you be able to have that perspective better. Okay, someone released their mic and you muted it back again. Did you want to say something?
I was just thinking that it might be that the way this happens to one is not as extreme as the ones that you've explained.
Okay, so for you, it doesn't happen that as extreme as what I've described.
Yeah, like
Okay.
last week I was exhausted,
Mm.
and my daughter was telling me I was I'm burnt out because I was complaining about a lot of stuff.
Mm.
So she made me, maybe by talking to her, I was more aware of my being burnt out than if I didn't talk to her.
Okay.
So maybe that's my method of like pointing at the areas when I am being burnt out.
I think that example you just gave would suggest that your experience with your daughter actually gave you an opportunity to start winding down in that particular situation.
Yes, it did.
Yes. So the problem would have been that, let's say you didn't have that kind of opportunity and you just kept on going and just kept on going until the body then really shuts down.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Any other person? Okay. All right. So moving on then. So essentially what we're saying is this. If you find that you are someone who's an empath, you would tend to take on things, and you now know that there is a likelihood that you are not able to tell the signal in your body, and you are now beginning to start to train your body to start to see the signal. What we're saying then is, when you find yourself in a situation where someone makes a request, maybe say you come back in a second, or you get back to them in a minute, or maybe you call them back to talk through it, and then take a minute to check on your capacity, to check on how your body is feeling in that moment. if you can you place yourself on that tiredness scale? Are you feeling a little bit exhausted? Are you feeling less exhausted? Are you feeling strong and not exhausted at all? Or are you still struggling to be able to tell if you're exhausted or not exhausted? And if you could get that stress dots that I mentioned earlier, use the stress dots to test to see where you are. Because sometimes if you are not able to tell by yourself, the subjective ability is not as good as actually having something that is there that can show you really what's going on. And then before that, you before you say yes, you check where your ceiling is at. And you may tell this person, okay, maybe I'll come back to you tomorrow. There's just something I need to go and do. It may feel like you're telling a lie, but it's not a lie, because you're something I need to go and do is I need to go and rest. I need to rest. It's still something I need to go and it's quite important. And then you take a rest before you come back to the person. So essentially what we're saying that the capacity that you have, nobody has unlimited capacity. And if you are an empath, there's a chance that your capacity has become very hidden to you. The situations where you feel you're able to carry on, you are not necessarily able to carry on. Now, there are situations where somebody may call you and say, "Oh, I really need something from you right now. I really need your help with this. This is an emergency. It's an emergency," and then you try to go and to go and give some of your time, only to find out that maybe it was just that their cat got stuck on the tree. I mean, fair enough for some people, that's enough of an emergency. But as an empath, the chances are that when you feel that there is something that is that needs urgency, you almost feel like you don't have the right to say no. So it's important to start checking. This thing I'm going to say yes to, is this an emergency or is this something that can actually wait a little bit? If my body is telling me I'm tired, perhaps this is not the best time to take on board that thing. I would tell them maybe I can help them tomorrow. I just need to rest a little bit today. Maybe I'll help them in 2 days' times. But noticing that it's not an emergency allows you to take a bit of a breather. So for some people, almost everything feels like it's an emergency. Just saying no feels like it's an emergency. But learning to kind of tell yourself, do I have room for this? Or is this something I can deal with later on? Gives you a breathing space. So kind of putting a summary to everything that we've covered today. So we started with highlighting that if for different circumstances, you've learned to see yourself as the person who supports other people, somebody who helps other people, somebody who's there for the people. Maybe because you had to take on a parental role early on as a child, or you had to actually look after your parents for whatever reason, but there's some kind of responsibility system that taught you to care a lot. There's a chance that your interoception senses has been turned down a ton to make it hard for you to tell when your body is tired. And what we've highlighted today is a few different systems that would help you practically be able to train yourself to be able to see the tiredness, to be able to feel the tiredness coming a lot earlier than when it will cause you to crash. And so once you put this system in place, just like my clients did, and my clients, if you just imagine, she'd been struggling with this cycle of massive breakdown for years. And all we did was 6 sessions of work of practicing these different strategies. And eventually, after because usually what would happen is a space of 4 weeks, roughly 6 weeks, she's going to have a crash. So after we've done the 6 sessions of work, as she was putting strategies in place, by 8 weeks, by 10 weeks, by 12 weeks, 15 weeks, the crash stopped happening because she could now put something practically that could help her to just sort of interrupt that system that was causing her to crash. So what I'm hoping is that I've given you a tool that you can practically use now in your own situation to prevent crashes and burnouts from happening. Because that's just like my sister said earlier. Uh, there was maybe for some people the burnout is not that heavy, but for some people the burnout doesn't stop at just burnout. Because when the burnout kicks in, it goes deeper into depression. And we want a system that will help us be able to catch that before that happens, to be able to prevent that from going deeper. So what I'm hoping is that you've now gotten something that you can start using practically. So for those of you feeling are new, just to kind of highlight, we've got a pattern room where we have a community where we talk about things like this, like we've covered today, and other kinds of pattern related emotional problems to help people break through from different difficult emotional difficulties. Essentially, learning practical strategies to cope better emotionally. Now, this is the pattern room community that I'm putting together with the hope that eventually you'll be able to come there, get as much support as you can from me, but from other people in the group as well, so that we can be able to kind of support each other whenever we are struggling. So if you're not already in the group, you can either use the number, just text me your number with the number that's on the screen, or you can use the QR code to get the link to the group. So just join the group, and in the group, so if you're already in the group, please feel free to ask questions. I know sometimes if because it's a new group, people are thinking, oh, should I ask questions? Would I be disturbing? No, you won't be disturbing. So I'm looking on a daily basis for questions people have. I'll also, if there are topics you would like us to cover in this Sunday sessions, that maybe things that you are struggling with particularly that you'd like us to cover, please feel free to add it to the group as well. So that brings us to the end of the session.